Welcome to Ask the Egg Whisperer. I'm so excited to always be here to answer your questions, and thank you for joining me today. Let's start off with Gulbahar's question from Australia. Age 40, my doctor recommended me to take a month break between egg collection cycles. There are only so many times to ask why and not be answered before you feeling like you can't ask again. What is the science between a month wait between collections? I have low ovarian reserve, so overstimulation is not likely. Why do some women have back-to-back egg collecting cycles while others don't? This is a great question. So basically what you're asking is, why do I need to take a break between egg retrievals? And the answer is you don't. You really don't. So you guys remember what I always say, when your period starts, you think of me and you come on in by cycle day 3. You just keep showing up. You just never know when you're going to have an awesome cycle. So how would you know that that cycle right after your egg retrieval isn't going to have a lot of sparkling eggs unless you actually go in and look? So I would advocate for yourself. Ask your doctor if I can come in at the time of my period just to check, understanding that you might have an ovarian cyst that might make it so that you just need to take a break. So I don't necessarily recommend a 1-month break. I do have patients that just feel like, they're kind of sick of me. They don't want to keep coming in cycle after cycle, and I totally get that. But if, let's say you're 41 years old, you have a follicle count of 3, the next month after your egg retrieval, you could have a follicle count of 4. So I would suggest, showing up, seeing what you're going to see, and then make a decision as to whether you should take a break or wait for your next cycle. So that's my approach. This next question is from Mallory, age 35 in New Jersey. After trying naturally for 1 year, my husband and I have been under the care of an RE for about 18 months. 3 failed IUIs, 1 failed medicated FET, and a recent failed natural FET. We banked 6 normal embryos from 1 retrieval. I had a laparoscopy done to remove my left tube. It was a hydrosalpinx between frozen embryo transfers, and it still didn't work. What do I do next? I don't want to keep putting in embryos and hoping. It's just so hard. I've never been pregnant. So Mallory, let's break it down, right? So we have a diagnosis, and that diagnosis was hydrosalpinx. The hydrosalpinx is probably what got in the way of the 18 months of getting pregnant or trying 3 failed IUIs and then the 1 failed medicated FET. So that's basically the story. So the question is, why the hydro? Is it from endometriosis? So endometriosis can also, I was gonna say uterus stinkiosis. It can really get in the way. That's really not a word. I just made it up. It can really get in the way of a healthy implantation. So ask your doctor, have you ruled out endometriosis? Have you ruled out adenomyosis? Did you see any when you removed my hydrosalpinx? And what about the other tube? You saw hydrosalpinx in this tube. Are you absolutely sure that my other tube, don't say it like that. Are you absolutely sure that my other tube, unless you want them to kick you out of the clinic, are you sure, just say it like this, are you sure that the other tube shouldn't also be evaluated for a hydrosalpinx? So that's my suggestion, is go back to your doctor for a post-op consult and say, can we look inside my uterus? Hello? Are there any polyps in here? Is there any scar tissue in here? Maybe we should do another HSG before we do the hysteroscopy to see if that one tube that's still there, if it's causing a ruckus, you might want to put it in a jar. And I know I say that, and I say that nonchalantly, and I don't mean any disrespect to your fallopian tube. And I don't mean to make such a serious issue seem so trivial. I'm just trying to, share my thoughts in a way that's very understandable and easy to remember, right? So as far as the other thing that I would do is maybe consider some more implantation testing, like doing the ERA test and the Receptiva DX test. You guys know that I'm all about mnemonics and phrases, and I have the Egg Whisperer diet. So I'm kind of breaking it down for you. You got your diagnosis, which is tubal factor. You already have made your gorgeous embryos, and now we're preparing for another embryo transfer, and it makes sense to prepare and do all the things like implantation testing that I suggested to you. And don't forget about your embryo diamonds and how important knowing every single factor on that list is before your next transfer, right? What's the implantation rate per embryo for the embryos that you have? Make sure that no one's doing the pat, pat, rub, rub. Oh, Mallory, quality doesn't matter of your embryos. You're going to be like, well, that's BS. I can show you 3,000 studies that say the opposite. So I think knowing what your embryo quality is, what the implantation rate per embryo would be for you, and making sure that with the embryos that you have left, you have enough for the family size that you want. So I strongly suggest you sit down and do an embryo review with your doctor as well, given now that you have transferred 2 embryos and you have 4 left. I want to make sure that you have enough for your future, given that you're young at 35. Not that you're not young at 37, because you are, but I just hope that me going on and on about things makes sense. Okay, I started my first egg retrieval at 6 in the morning, you guys. You know what that means? That means I woke up at 5 in the morning. And that also means that my sweet husband woke up at 5 in the morning too, because that's what he does. He gets out of bed, he makes me coffee, he puts it in my car. I have my little bar, he puts it in the middle seat too. And he makes sure I have my AirPods, my Apple Watch, which I put in a drawer because it starts dinging sometimes and that embarrasses me. So anyways, God bless him. So next question comes from Marta. Marta, age 42 from the USA. Hi, Dr. Amy, I love your show. I learned the most from listening to your podcast. Thank you. I have been cleared for IVF. My FSH is 16.3, AMH is 0.3. My fallopian tubes are open and uterus is in great shape. My husband's sperm is also great. We decided to get pregnant in August of 2017 and got pregnant within a month. Sadly, we lost the pregnancy to an abnormality called triploidy. What are the chances of me succeeding with IVF? I wish there was more fertility awareness, which you have said is your goal. If I knew about the age limitations and IVF, I would have tried sooner. Thank you. I know, Marta. What is that saying? You're preaching to the choir. I was raised by immigrants, is what I tell my husband. So I don't really understand a lot of these things that people, and then sometimes I say them and they're incorrect. My father says, the fan hit the shit. I'm like, no, Daddy, it's not the fan hitting the shit. But thanks, I do get you. Anyways, I digress. So Marta, let's kind of break it down. Where's my pyramid? I have a pyramid somewhere. I hope I don't knock over my coffee. Here it is. So let's say here is the pyramid, right? So make sure you have printed out this pyramid and you take it into your doctor and you say, fill it out. No, you don't have to say it like that. You can just say, can you just tell me what you think my pyramid will look like? So you're age 42, your AMH is 0.3. So what does that tell us? You have 3 potential eggs. You know, your antral follicle count will obviously be more informative than your AMH, but I can guess by your AMH how many eggs you might have retrieved. So it's 3. Of those 3 follicles, the number of mature eggs, it could be anywhere from 1 to 3. Of the mature eggs, let's just say you get 2 mature eggs retrieved, and I promise I'll bring down this finger, and then, see, I did sleep just enough to know which finger to move, barely. And then you're going to have 1 fertilized egg. The chance that that embryo reaches the blastocyst stage, let's just say it's around 50%. Let's just be really positive and say that embryo is now a blastocyst. What is the likelihood of that blastocyst being genetically normal? It's around 15 to 18%, okay? And people would say, wait, and why would I do it for that percentage chance? Why? And I'm like, because eventually it's going to be 0%. 0. Becomes 0% for everybody at some point. You're only 42. You got the rest of your life to live. And I know we're on the same page. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking this question. But I get fired up about helping anyone who has a chance. And you definitely have a chance. Your FSH level suggests it's going to be really hard to find a good egg. Your AMH level suggests the same. Your age, no big surprise, suggests the same. So remember the Egg Whisperer diagnosis, right? So it's age related because everything else is awesome. You're preparing for your IVF, so make sure you're taking all the egg quality supplements and talk to your doctor about maybe adding other things like HGH. You're going to prepare for your embryo transfer, and then you're going to transfer. And if you are so lucky to get 1 healthy embryo in your first cycle, guess what? You're going to do another one so you can get more. So you can have a second baby maybe in a couple of years. Okay? Great question, Marta. This next question is from Shauna in Canada. Hi, Dr. Amy. Thank you for being you. I discovered you on Instagram a few months ago, and you have been such a support to me. Thank you, Shauna, for saying that. My question is this. I'm 36 with unexplained infertility. I will not roll my eyes. 3.5 years of secondary infertility. It only took us 6 months to conceive my first child. No pregnancies or miscarriages since then. I have a low, but just still in the normal range of AMH for my age. Cycles range from 23 to 28 days. I always seem to ovulate according to my OPK strips, typically positive on day 15, but ovulation day can change and be late in my cycle, which can make for a short luteal phase. Clomid did work, but my cycles did make my cycles consistent. I'm just beginning my IVF journey. Disappointed. My clinic does not offer ERA or other uterine checks aside from ultrasound and blood work. Should this be a deal breaker? Would appreciate your opinion. Canada does not have as many fertility clinics as the US, but maybe I should be willing to travel. Thank you so much. Okay, Shauna, you told me your diagnosis, right? You said my AMH is a little bit low. You gave me your age. You told me there's some ovulatory dysfunction. That could all be, let's talk about it, an egg story. That's the title of our book, Egg Story. So I strongly suggest you prepare your eggs for your egg retrieval. At the end of the day, there's no egg exercises we can do. It isn't like sperm. They can literally go through sperm fitness challenge, I just imagine this little sperm cell in the gym, lifting weights, and then getting stronger, and then sperm counts go up. It doesn't work like that. Our fertility is not skin deep. However, obviously, it does help to live your, healthiest life and eat healthy and all that good stuff. But my suggestion is to prepare for your IVF cycle as if there could be an egg quality issue, and talk to your doctor about what are all the things that they think that you should do based on what they've learned about you for this upcoming cycle so that you can optimize your chances. And this is the thing, when your cycles are 23 to 28 days, some of your cycles could be better than others. So remember that analogy that I give everybody, you got to watch the waves coming in. I might need a vacation soon, but I'm constantly talking about these waves as if I'm sitting at the beach and I'm just imagining it. Imagine with me, you guys, these waves of eggs coming in, and those 23-day cycle waves are not going to be as good as those 28-day cycle waves, because I promise you those 23-day cycle waves, all of a sudden you're just going to be hitting the head. Man, I am on a roll tonight. That wave can just come in and just knock you over, before the rest of the surfers are ready. I don't know that that really makes sense. Clearly, I need to take some surfing lessons, so I know more about what I'm talking about. But that's my point. I just hit myself a little too hard in the head right there. I should probably be a little bit gentler with that. But I don't think the ERA test should be a deal breaker. I think what should be a deal breaker is someone that doesn't, use their words to describe what they're seeing, and tell you what the size of the follicles are, why they're choosing the protocol they're using, what your IVF pyramid is going to look like. Like, those are the most important things. The implantation testing, obviously that's really important as well, to me, but everyone has their thing, what they feel really strongly about, and the tools in their toolbox that they use. And I have my special sauce, they might have their special sauce, and it's like, you have your, I think my grandma made baklava. She didn't make any chocolate chip cookies. So I can't use a chocolate chip cookie analogy, but her recipe in her hands is going to be really, really good. So I would say it's okay to trust your doctor as long as they're communicating well and you really feel excited to move forward and you feel like they really have your best interest in mind and they also believe in your fertility. I think that's really important. Like, I see people and they're like, do I have poor ovarian response? Do I have decreased ovarian reserve? I'm like, what? Why are you defining yourself like that? No, you're a young, healthy woman with healthy eggs. And sometimes it takes growing 5 eggs to get one good embryo. So I have to kind of turn things around for people, because I swear, the little negative thoughts that are always on our shoulder, in our heads, they can be quite constant. And it's time to shut them down. Okay. This next question is from Susie, age 36, from New Jersey. Dr. Amy, I'm addicted to you and you're amazing. My name is Susie. Here are my questions. I want 2 to 3 babies. How many normal embryos should I freeze? Here's the deal. I'm 36, BMI is 27. I'll start taking all the recommended supplements. I ordered the sperm test as well. What can I do to get more normal eggs? What else should I be checking? Suggestions on preparing for transfers. Here's the deal. I was planning on doing 3 cycles, but I was willing to do more. Do you recommend something different? How many IVF cycles are safe? Here are my labs: FSH8, LH3, AMH 1.6. Let's see here, was on Gonal-F 300, Menopur 150, Cetrotide, Trigger 5000. I made the mistake and under trigger, but should have been 10,000. 19 eggs, 12 mature, 9 fertilized, and embryos, 5 blasts, 1 normal, and 1 low-level mosaic. Then prior to that, and did I mess up my pages here? Oh no. Susie, oh no. Paula is going to kill me. She's going to be like, did you mess up another question And poor Susie's now going to email me and be like, what the heck? But I think you're just describing everything and you're not asking questions after this. So you got one normal and one low-level mosaic in Jan and Feb 2020, 2 failed IUIs. In November 2019, my tubes were blocked and I had surgery. Diagnosis is unknown. Thank you. 1 day 5 euploid, 4AA, and 1 day 6 low-level mosaic. Okay, here we go. This is very similar to one of the questions I answered earlier. So Susie, here's the deal. You're 36, you're a healthy young woman with a lot of eggs, right? So your AMH is 1.62, which is awesome. And I imagine your AMH is probably a little bit higher because you got 19 eggs. So I bet it's closer to 2. But you got one normal and one low-level mosaic, which is awesome. And you want 2 to 3 babies. But this is the thing. Why were your tubes blocked, right? Unfortunately, the title of so many women's books, your fertility book, there's the baby book and then the fertility book. We all need a fertility book, right? We've got to fill up the chapters with your Tushy method, the balls method, the egg whisperer diet. No, I don't want anyone, honestly, to need my help, but obviously I am here to help anyone who needs it. So what I'm thinking is that it makes sense to do at least 2 more cycles, knowing that you want 2 to 3 babies, and then decide from there what you should do, and then do all the implantation testing, but then go back and look at your tubes, because I'm always suspicious about tubes that were blocked and you had surgery, and then if someone told you that they unblocked them, I'm like, I gotta tell you a secret. Once you unblock a tube that was blocked, about 5 minutes later, it could be blocked again. You just close your eyes and all of a sudden it's blocked again. I swear to God, these tubes are something else. The integrity of the inside of the tube is like chewing gum. And so if you try and unblock it, with the pressure, let's say, of the fluid of the indigo carmine, for example, that you're using, or the methylene blue, that might just not be enough to keep the tubes open. So I would suggest you take a look back at the tubes before you transfer. As far as what to do to get more normal eggs, I think that as far as a protocol, maybe one thing to consider is add HGH. And you guys hear me talk about that all the time. Other things to check, make sure you're checking your preconception labs. I would say preparing for transfers, I think your BMI is just fine. If you want to decrease your BMI by just a touch, I don't think that would necessarily hurt before you go into a pregnancy. But overall, I think you're doing everything great. It sounds like you're ordering the supplements. You've ordered a semen analysis. Go through Embryo Diamonds with your doctor, embryodiamonds.com, and look at the S, which is the sperm on the day of the egg retrieval, and see if that helps. Okay, let's move on to Amy, spelled like me. Hi, Amy. My name is also Amy from Chicago. I totally feel like there's a kinship. There has to be, Amy, because we spell our name the same way. And if you're a Leo, I actually am a Taurus. Then whoa. Anyway, this question is more about the IVF protocols and balancing them with a career. I have a very demanding executive level position that requires travel, but my cycle starts next month and I'm worried about being able to balance a couple of drivable work trips in my treatments. My clinic experience has been nothing short of terrible, so trying to get solid details from them is like pulling my own teeth. I'm sorry. Once I start the meds, am I in the clinic daily? I'm so scared to tell my boss. The role I'm in is now new, and I'm in fear of retaliation or being treated differently if I disclose why I have to miss some things for the next month or 2. My boss is a woman and is amazing, but I don't want to tell her I essentially can't do parts of my job for a brief time. Help. Okay, Amy. Okay, are you ready for this? This is really harsh. Okay, wait. I don't want to say it, but it's in my head. This is going to sound like a very, deep thoughts by Dr. Amy to Amy. We are all replaceable in the workforce, every single one of us. You'll get one chance to live this life, one. And the most important thing to so many women out there is your chance to be a mother. You have the rest of your life to work, the rest, but your fertility will not wait for you. So Amy, you have a priority. Your priority is to be a mother. So I'm going to use do a little of this. Don't do that. See, I used the wrong finger. But I literally would tell you that the only person that cares the most about you and your fertility is you, and you got to fight for what is important to you and don't let any of the other stuff get in the way. Okay? Deep thoughts by Dr. Amy. Thank you, everybody. I know that was a serious moment. You guys are like, holy shit, what was she going to say? And now you heard it. I had other choice words I was going to say, but I feel like it's important for us to prioritize ourselves and our goals. And at 38, there's no better time than now. So go get those embryos on ice, right, you guys? It's always nice to have embryos on ice. It's always nice to have eggs on ice. And now Amy's like, I wish I never sent in a question to Ask the Egg Whisperer. Love you guys. Okay, next question is from Kathy, 37 in New Jersey. Hi, Dr. Amy. My husband and I are both 37. My AMH is 1.95, FSH is 8.89, AFC is 7. My husband has a good sperm count and motility, but only 1% morphology. We're beginning IVF with Pixie and PGTA. Ideally, we'd like to have 2 kids. How many cycles do you think we will need to go through to achieve our goals? And any other things we need to consider as we begin this journey. Thank you so much for all your help. Okay, so Kathy, we have your age as a diagnosis. There's nothing wrong with your age. I mean, it's awesome that you're 37, but that's part of the pyramid that we're always talking about. We have your husband's morphology that's part of our diagnosis, right? So there could be a fertilization issue, okay? Every time I say fertilization, I feel like saying fertilization, but fertilization issue. So you guys know my personality, right? What can we do to give ourselves the best chance of pregnancy at home without the fertility doctor's help, right? So for you, Kathy, it's, taking supplements, eating healthy, all that lifestyle medicine stuff that I always talk about. For your husband, what can we do to make his morphology better? Stay out of the hot tubs, no bubble baths for you anymore, avoid hard liquor, stop smoking, vaping, all that good stuff, and no gummy bears for you. And I would also suggest checking a sperm DNA fragmentation test so that on the day of the egg retrieval, if your doctor thinks that you need a little more something to get the sperm a little more sparkly, that would be a great time to do it. So with good sperm count and motility, and his age is only 37, chances are really good his sperm DNA fragmentation is going to be great. But I have been unpleasantly surprised before. Well, pleasantly surprised because I like to do this testing up front, where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This sperm should have been good. You're young. The quality is great. What the heckity heck is going on? And then you repeat it again because you think maybe it's a lab error. And then, gosh darn it, it's the same. And then you send it to another lab that does the same test and you see the same thing. So my point is, you're on supplements, put him on supplements. You guys should all be on supplements. And I know supplements and talking about them, some people think it's controversial. I mean, I don't see that it would hurt. Obviously, food is medicine and eating healthy is probably the best source of antioxidants, but not all of us are able to do that all the time. So I hope that helps. And to answer your question, let's go through the pyramid. We have follicle count of 7. You're probably going to get maybe about, sorry, did you guys see that? I put the number 7. 5 mature eggs, potentially. 4 will be fertilized. Let's just say 2 to 3 will be blastocysts. Okay, 2 to 3. And each blastocyst at 37 has a pretty good chance of being genetically normal. We'll say about 25%. So hopefully you'll get at least 1 healthy, strong blastocyst from that batch. So depending on how many kids that you want, and you said that you wanted 2, I would be open to the possibility of needing 3 IVF cycles to get 2 healthy embryos so that you guys can have the family size that you want. Okay, great. This next question is from Kathy in New Jersey. I wonder if it's the same Kathy. It could be, but I would love to answer your question. Hi, Dr. Amy. We recently started IVF, and after 2 days of stim, we went in for blood work, and my estrogen level was 11. After 4 days of stim, my estrogen level was 64. I'm on 450 IU of follistim and 0.5 cc's of low-dose HCG. The doctor only saw 2 follicles worth measuring, 6.5 millimeters. He mentioned I was a slow responder, and hopefully the little ones will catch up. He doesn't see me for another 3 days. I've read various things about estradiol levels during IVF. I'm wondering if I should be concerned with my levels. Okay, Kathy, based on the protocol that you're on, you're right. I would expect a higher estrogen level. However, your follicle count is 2. So if your follicle count is 2, that estrogen level is actually totally normal. There's nothing wrong with it. So remember the IVF pyramid. I should have this in color and laminated because that would be kind of cool, but I don't. So I just show it to you guys like that. So ask your doctor about your IVF pyramid and what they expect for you. Based on your AMH, your follicle count, is 2 follicles kind of like what you guys should expect? If 2 follicles are what you should expect, this sounds great to me. However, if your AMH is like 1.3 and your FSH is 9, and let's just say you had 7 follicles at the beginning of the cycle and now you only have 2 and your estrogen level is this, I would say your ovaries are saying, leave me the heck alone. Just leave me alone. I don't want to be touched right now. Let them just work it out. And then show up next cycle. And then there's a really good chance next cycle could be a better cycle. And I've seen that before in people. Sometimes the ovaries are just like, this isn't the month. I mean, I've had real life experiences with patients where it's like, one cycle, I get 3 normal blasts. Next cycle, I get no blasts. The next cycle, I get 5 normal blasts. And I'm like, okay, it would have been kind of nice to have that 3rd cycle be the 1st cycle. But no, I had to deal with this 2 cycle stuff to finally get the 1 cycle where I got 5 normal. And I'm like telling the patient, write everything down that you ate. What supplements did you take? And they're like, I did nothing different. Okay. This next question comes from Catherine, age 35 in California. Hi, Dr. Amy. I wish I lived up north so I could have you as my doctor. I think you're amazing. I just had my first embryo transfer and it failed. It was a PGS tested embryo, so I'm feeling super bummed. I'm feeling bummed too. That kind of stuff just pisses me off and makes me very, very sad and angry. What are some, and I have choice words when that happens, what are some follow-up questions I should be asking my doctor? I've been pregnant in the past 3 years ago, 2 ectopic pregnancies. My diagnosis is blocked fallopian tubes. Thank you so much for all you do. Catherine, I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we talk about blocked fallopian tubes, we also have to realize that there can be some inflammation in the tube that could be spilling into the uterus. Your tubes, just like my arms, well, actually not like my arms, well, actually like my arms are connected to the body of the uterus. So your tubes are connected to the body of the uterus. So the tubal fluid, if there's inflammation in there, can go into the uterus. And what's in your uterus? Your embryo. So if your doctor puts your embryo in the uterus and there's fluid that comes in or any type of inflammation, that embryo will be like, I'm not sticking around here. This ain't my home. So that's the deal, is we want to make sure that there's any inflammation in the fallopian tubes that are going to block implantation. I know I just said that really, really fast, but talk to your doctor like this. Say, hi doctor, have you ruled out a hydrosalpinx? Am I at increased risk for having another ectopic pregnancy? I heard somewhere on this really great podcast that when you go through IVF, an embryo can actually float into a fallopian tube. So I could be at even a higher risk of ectopic pregnancy compared to someone else going through IVF. So it might not be a bad time or idea to consider a hysteroscopy, laparoscopy, or an HSG first to see what's going on. Obviously, we want to do more IVF to freeze more embryos for you, but before you transfer, ask about the things that I just brought up. Does it make sense to repeat an HSG? Does it make sense to do a laparoscopy? And remember, be paranoid about everything. Don't trust anybody. Get the reports. Get your medical records. Read your HSG report. Make sure nothing has been missed. And I actually have a portal where I can actually see the images. And if I have a patient, let's say, that's in a different part of California, and I can't see the images in the portal because they've gone somewhere else, guess what? I'm going to order a CD. And you can order the CD yourself. You can even print out the images and actually show, with technology that, there's so many things that you can do to communicate better with your care team. So I would suggest that you do that just to make it easy on them. You can say, hey, have you seen the images from my HSG? Would it make sense to look at them again? Right? Easy. I know it's not easy, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to make the steps very straightforward and simple for anybody who's in this type of situation. These are the things that I would consider if it were me. Okay, this next question is from Rasika, age 37 from India. Please, could you share some insight or treatment for endometrium fluid just before the embryo transfer? This is a concern where most of the egg transfers get delayed. You've never spoken about this topic. Well, I think I have. Your input will be beneficial for everyone facing delay due to fluid in the endometrial cavity. Okay, Rasika, this is a really great question. This is what I call an IVF challenge, fluid in the cavity. So you're ready for a transfer. You're doing an ultrasound, you're at your lining check, and you're like, what? There's fluid in my cavity? So let me tell you what the fluid in the cavity could be. It could be the egg white cervical mucus, from starting estrogen. It could go into the cervix and then go into the cavity, so that's one. 2, it could be fluid from a hydrosalpinx going into the uterus. So It's always important when you have this to make sure that you've had a recent enough HSG to rule out a hydrosalpinx. And so those are the two most common things that could be causing fluid in the cavity. And there's also three, like a band of scar tissue in the middle of the cavity. Let's say here's the trilaminar lining, and then you have a band of scar tissue. Sometimes you can have fluid that's trapped, and you can't get fluid that travels in and out of the lining. Ooh, watch me. And so that can happen too. So it can be from scar tissue. So simple things to do. Number one, talk to your doctor about the dose of estrogen you're on. See if you should lower it. Get seen for an earlier lining check to see at which point the mucus is forming. Thing two, consider not just a different dose, but maybe a different approach. So rather than using an estrogen shot, maybe use an estrogen patch. If you're using an estrogen pill, maybe you use an estrogen patch. If you're using an estrogen shot, maybe go down on the dose. So many different things you could do. If you're placing estrogen vaginally, maybe take it orally. And then there's also things that we use as decongestants. I can speak clearly. So decongestants like Robitussin, Claritin, even Sudafed. I don't recommend Sudafed though, but I do have cases where I'm like, just trust me. I've seen this work before. Let's do this. Maybe taking a Claritin, or actually I usually recommend Mucinex instead, can sometimes clear up the fluid. But I think what you should know is that it's common. It could be a sign of a hydrosalpinx scar tissue or a change of meds that should be that is needed. But at the end of the day, you can aspirate the fluid, do a hysteroscopy, and there's a really good chance that you would have a successful transfer when you've had fluid in the cavity. I've seen it before. I've transferred for patients who've had it. Once it's resolved, and everything goes fabulously. Okay. Oh, that was hard to get out. Next one, Mucinex. Yes. I have a couple questions that people are asking right now. Can you get Botox between IVF cycles? And the answer is yes. If you're a patient of mine, I would say you can get Botox. Okay, this next question is from Penny, age 38 in Florida. Penny says, hi, Dr. Amy. I'm 38 and a half, and in the past 6 months, I've done 3 egg retrievals to preserve my fertility. Yes. Cycle 1, 15 eggs frozen. Cycle 2, 4 embryos with donor sperm, 1 normal 5 AB, 1 low mosaic 5 BB. Cycle 3, 7 embryos, 5 day 5, 1 day 6, 1 day 7, waiting for PGTA results. I'm hoping to start a family as a single mom by choice. I want to try to conceive as soon as next month after having an HSG. I ultimately want to have 2 kids, maybe both at the same donor, or possibly with a partner with my frozen eggs, depending on life unfolds. My fertility doctor recommended trying at least 1 IUI now that I have eggs and embryos banked because I could possibly avoid the cost of a transfer and avoid PIO shots. This sounds appealing. The PIO shots sound terrifying. Yes, I call them PIA shots. Pain in the ass. Would you recommend trying IUIs with donor sperm first? What are the pros and cons? If yes, how many IUIs would you recommend before moving to a transfer? Thanks so much for your advice. So Penny, the chance of an IUI working is about maybe 10%, right? The chance of one of your embryos working, closer to maybe 65 to 75%. My vote, embryo. Unless, of course, you really would rather not pay the cost of a transfer, which I totally get, and you would rather not do the PIA, aka PIO shots. So it's just a personal decision. I don't think there's a right answer. I think the fact that you got 4 embryos, 1 normal 5 AB, and then you have 7 embryos and you had 5 day 5, and it's pretty incredible. Chances are those 15 eggs that you have frozen are going to be pretty good for you in the future to use as well. So I don't think that you're going to be in a bad spot if you just go right to IVF and transfer one of your best embryos first. Unless, of course, you just feel like having the experience of doing an IUI and seeing if you can get pregnant naturally. And if that's the case, I would say go for it so you can have the experience. Otherwise, I would say stick to your embryos. Next question is from Anna, age 31 in Florida. I've been doing a stim cycle with 75 gonal for 5 days. On cycle day 10, I had a lot of follicles. Maximum size was 15 millimeters, and my estradiol, 6,000. Oh my gosh, someone's asking, what are PIO shots and why are they PIA? Okay, PIO shot stands for progesterone in oil. They're PIA because they're a pain in the ass. They hurt like hell. Okay. Going back to Anna from Florida, on cycle day 10, estradiol 6,000, trying timed intercourse and stim as my body is naturally very slow. My question, is there hope that I do not need to cancel my cycle? We will check on ultrasound again in 3 days, cycle day 13, but the estradiol level is just so high. Yeah, Anna in Florida, that estrogen level is like you're going to have an egg explosion. I mean, you're not really. It sounds like you're being monitored by your doctors. But let me tell you what I would do if you were a patient of mine. Number one, stop the gonal F, like immediately. Number two, if you don't want to stop the gonal F and keep going, I would say, Anna, you're very cheap to stimulate. And what I mean by that is after only 75 agonal for 5 days, you're basically giving yourself an IVF cycle. So why don't we take advantage of this, prevent you from having a complication like OHSS, and let's collect eggs, right? Remember, it's always nice to have eggs on ice. It's always nice to have embryos on ice. This would be the perfect opportunity for you to take advantage of the low amount of medications that you use and create embryos and give yourself a much higher chance of pregnancy. Because I can tell you, if you're growing that number of eggs to have an estradiol of 6,000, let me tell you, you're going to be quite bloated after you ovulate. So a few things you need to have on board: a heating pad, pain medication, emergency phone numbers. Start chugging the whey protein, start chugging the electrolytes, talk to your doctor about prescribing bromocriptine Femara, and even consider canceling the cycle if you start feeling like crap. So the answer is yes, your estradiol is too high. 6,000? I'm hoping they made a mistake and it was 600. But call your doctor and be like, I was listening to a podcast and they said that an estradiol of 6,000 is kind of high for me to do timed intercourse. The answer is yes, it is. Okay. Next question is from Nadia, age 30 in Chicago. Hi, Dr. Amy. I've been trying to conceive for over a year. We've done all the tests. My husband's semen analysis is great. I've had 3 failed IUIs, so we're moving on to IVF. At my baseline, they found 2 bilateral endometriomas, 6 centimeter, 5 centimeter. And because of this, my cycle has been delayed. And of course, I am so heartbroken. I do not have any symptoms. I did not even know. My doctor initially suggested to do surgery to remove the cyst, but because of my age and the fact that I have no symptoms, she said it'd be better to try whatever we can to avoid surgery first. So she's going to start me on depoLupron for a month and check if they shrunk and continue this for 3 months and then decide from there. I'm praying they shrink soon. But my question is depoLupron a good option for me? I keep reading horror stories of how it's a bad idea, but I'm scared of the risks of surgery, AMH levels dropping, etc. Okay, so Nadia, here's the deal. You're 30 years old, and we know that endometriosis is a fertility-threatening condition. You guys have all seen me do this, right? So here's your age without endometriosis, and then here's your egg age when you have it. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that made sense. My point is that endometriosis can result in less mature eggs, less viable eggs, and can also affect the fallopian tubes and make them get in the way, and can also cause potentially adenomyosis, which can cause implantation issues. My suggestion, ask your doctor, would it be okay if I made embryos first? Or should I do surgery first and then make embryos? My recommendation is to make embryos now. I don't understand, if you are my patient, why I would be putting you on depoLupron right now if we don't even have embryos. Remember, diagnosis, IVF, embryo transfer preparation, and then embryo transfer. So we know our diagnosis is severe endometriosis because you have the 2 bilateral endometriomas. We know what that diagnosis can do to a young, healthy, fertile woman. So we want to do IVF with that in mind, and then we want to transfer and prepare for the transfer in the right way, and that's where the depoLupron surgery will come in. So for now, I would say maybe switcheroo things because you're worried about how Lupron is going to affect you. And I can tell you that once you're on Lupron, you want all these questions answered first because Lupron can make you feel nutty. It can cause insomnia. It can cause anxiety. It can cause depression. It can make you feel like you're having a hard time coping with reality. It can make you question your sanity. It can make you lose hope because I've seen it all. Well, not all. I mean, when I'm talking about depoLupron, I do put patients on it, but I screen them very carefully before I even put them on it. Do you have sleep problems? Do you have problems with anxiety? Do you have problems with depression? And it's like, if you have any of these problems actively, it's like, no depoLupron for you. And we have to figure all this stuff about your diagnosis ahead of time because Lupron basically puts you into a medical menopause. And then your ovaries are going to take some time to wake up again. And you want to make sure you have a plan in place before you take it. Lupron is different than Leuprolide, you guys. So Lupron is a shot that goes in your butt. It's intramuscular, and it lasts, one shot lasts 30 days if it's 3.75 milligrams, and then there's another shot that lasts 3 months. And so I typically recommend one shot at a time so that if you want to raise the white flag and you're like, enough's enough, you can. Otherwise, there are some patients who take one shot that lasts 3 months depending on their situation. But I can tell you, Nadia, you might feel a lot better having embryos frozen ahead of taking depoLupron, and then you're going to feel so much better knowing that there is an end in sight, that you've done the work, that your embryos are waiting for you, and they're waiting to go home. And then it makes it feel like taking that depoLupron is worth it because you're looking forward to something, right? There's something waiting for you that's amazing out there. Okay, this next question is from Jeanette, age 42 in the UK. And if it was my mother saying her name, she would say Jeanette. I'm like, it's Jeanette. Jeanette. Okay. Hi, Amy. Hi, Dr. Amy. I recently found your YouTube channel and I subscribed to it. Well, thank you. I recommend everybody does. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My questions are this. 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and completed chemotherapy, radiation, and lump operation. In 2019, we started to have IVF in Greece and had 4 failed IVF cycles. My husband had low motility, and I had low ovarian reserve. First IVF cycle, 4 eggs, 3 fertilized, 2 fresh transferred, day 2 negative pregnancy tests. I used GoNLF and Cetrotide. Second cycle, 4 eggs, 3 fertilized, but only survived to day 3, Menopur 300 and Cetrotide. Third cycle, 4 eggs, none fertilized, Menopur 375 and Cetrotide. Fourth cycle, 12 eggs, 7 fertilized, 1 blast grade AA. Same medicine as IVF3, frozen transferred, negative pregnancy. My question is, should I try again at 42? Or should I try IVF abroad? We're physically, emotionally, and financially drained. Or is egg donor the only option for us? Okay, Jeanette, I'm very sorry that you've gone through everything that you've gone through. You've done everything that I would tell anyone in your shoes to go and do, and that is to be open to doing at least 4 cycles. Give yourself that opportunity. Not that you have to do 4 cycles, you guys, but I always tell people when you're over the age of 40, it's always hard to find a good egg. And even if you do 4 cycles, you may not get a good egg, and you might not find a healthy embryo. You've given yourself a great opportunity to maximize your chances of a healthy pregnancy. However, I'm a very stubborn woman. I was going to say the word woman in person, womson, in one word. And your 4th IVF cycle is making me feel a little snarky. And what I'm trying to say here is you got 12 eggs, 7 fertilized, and you had 1 AA blast. That's like telling you, Jeanette, don't stop. It's so hard to see that AA blast and not want to stop. But the thing is, if you are financially drained, I think what that AA tells you is keep going. It doesn't have to be with your own eggs. You guys all know my saying, not my saying, it's not like I made it up. I don't think I made it up. You're going to be a mother one way or another, and it doesn't have to be with your own DNA, and that's okay. Your heart doesn't know the difference between your genes and someone else's genes when you're looking at your baby, truly. So it's not that egg donor is the only option for us. You're young, you're healthy, obviously you're brave, you have lots of energy. I mean, you're thinking about leaving home and traveling for IVF, so obviously you feel vibrant and you're strong and resilient. But I want you to bring your baby home as soon as possible. And my suggestion would be to rethink doing more IVF unless you feel like you will always question whether you tried one more time. But if you have enough money to do 1 more cycle, and that cycle will give you a more than 50% chance of pregnancy, it does make sense that choosing an egg donor would be the right next step. There's also embryo donation, and you did share a little bit about your husband's sperm. I imagine he's probably close in age to you. And if that's the case, I think it is important to make sure that he's taking supplements, taking really good care of himself, seeing what he can do to make his motility higher. Talk to the fertility clinic about what you learned about each sperm or semen analysis at each egg retrieval, and kind of look at all the sperm quality and see if you can find some sort of trend. Maybe the sperm quality was better in the 4th cycle. I mean, that would be really interesting to see. But I would say that you don't have to feel like you need to give up on your own eggs, but I still think that it might be nice to think about at least other options. Start exploring them because it's going to take you some time to find the golden egg, whether it be yours or an egg donor. But it certainly isn't the only option for you, but I think it might be the best at this time. Okay, but I wish you lived down the street, because if you did, I'd be like, come on in. I'm super pumped to try and get the 12 eggs again and see what I can do to get AA blasts for you. I'm telling you. Okay, this next question comes from Mel, age 39 in New York. I'm 39 years old. My husband is 43. I've never been pregnant and I want a child. I was diagnosed with low AMH in 2020, 0.18. That was in February. And then in May, my AMH was 0.16. My HSG showed my right tube was inoculated, a history of a right ovarian dermoid cystectomy. My husband's semen analysis, motility 69%. I did 2 IUIs with Clomid, 1 IVF, estrogen priming with ICSI, assisted hatching with the Vivel patch, Gonal-F for 15 days, 300 units, Menopur 150 units, then went up to 300, Cetrotide. I did that for several days. And then I triggered with Novarel, and my egg retrieval results, day 0, 4 eggs at retrieval time. Day 1, 2 out of 4 fertilized. Day 6, 1 blastocyst, grade BA. The day 6 blast was sent to iGenomics, and the result was aneuploid with chromosome 18 abnormality. I did not get to the transfer stage. My fertility doctor stated that I should do another cycle, same protocol with Clomid. What are your suggestions? Okay, here's the deal. Mel, you stimulated for 15 days. What does that tell me? Estradiol might have suppressed you too much. I would say no to the estrogen. Say no, thank you, no, thank you. See if your doctor would consider not using the estrogen, another way to prepare you. I know you're in New York, and not all New York doctors can use HGH because they don't feel comfortable with it or they feel like they can't, and I totally get it. But maybe you have a doctor that could potentially consider adding it. So see if you can add HGH to your protocol. Add all the egg quality supplements that I always talk about, like higher dose CoQ10, NAD, pterostilbene. Make sure, I know your husband's sperm looks fabulous, but make sure that he's also taking really good care of himself, ejaculating every 3 days during your IVF cycle. I know, isn't that a weird thing to say? But that's what I just said. And then the other thing to consider doing is maybe adding Lupron to your Novarel trigger. That's something that I would do. And I think the fact that you got 4 eggs out and your AMH is 0.18 is pretty darn incredible. Like incredible, incredible. So I would say keep going. And I really hope that you can make another blast. But again, we have to say the following. You guys have all heard me say this. It's really hard to find a good egg at 39. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay? So think of yourself the way I think of you. You're a healthy young woman. You deserve to have a baby. I really want it to be with your own eggs. And then remember the egg whisperer diet, right? So your diagnosis is you probably had a lot of your ovary removed due to the dermoid surgery. Number 2, that dermoid surgery probably blocked your fallopian tube. So before you actually put a precious embryo in your uterus, go back and see if your doctor thinks that you should have that right tube removed so you have a higher chance of implantation and a decreased risk of an ectopic pregnancy. So that'd be really important for me to share with you if you were a patient of mine. And I feel like there's one more thing. The other thing is for anyone out there who is dealing with a diagnosis of an ovarian cyst, and you might have to have surgery to have it removed, always think about your fertility. Always, always. You can get your AMH level checked just for more additional information about what's going on with your body to see what your levels are at, and then consider egg freezing or embryo freezing right after or before. Okay. This next question is from Whitney, age 29 in Michigan. We're trying for baby number 2. Baby number 1 was successful with our first frozen embryo transfer in 2018. Birth was a pretty traumatic C-section with placenta accreta. Holy smokes. You guys, I just hear that word accreta and my heart starts beating very fast. But my uterus survived. We did our first FET for number 2 in November 2020, and it resulted in an early loss at 5 weeks. We're prepping for another FET, and fluid was found on my C-section scar and appeared there is a definite defect. This was not found on my saline sauna before the transfer in November. Would you continue with another transfer? Would you recommend getting the defect repaired before doing another transfer? Or do you have any other recommendations for a C-section scar defect? So Whitney, here's the deal. Those C-section scar defects can cause a lot of trouble. It can put you in a type of situation, okay? The kind of situation that we don't want to be in. And I've seen them before. Cesarean scar ectopics, they're the freaking worst, okay? Freaking. Like horrible. You don't want a cesarean scar defect to get in the way of your transfer success, okay? So my suggestion is to repair the cesarean scar defect, have it done by someone who knows exactly what they're doing, who knows how to do it. Because the surgeon who knows how to do it is someone who also has seen other patients just like you, and they've done it for them, and those patients have then gone on to have a healthy pregnancy. So that's the kind of surgeon that you want to see. So number one, I would repair your CSD. The other term for it is a niche, N-I-C-H-E. The other term for it is an isthmosele. So those are the common words that we use to describe what you're seeing. So I would strongly consider repairing it. The other thing is this. Make sure you have your delivery records in your C-section report. Show it to your IVF doctor and say, I'm only thinking about you and your life because that's very important to me. And I need you to ask your doctor and say, do you think it is safe, based on what you've read in this report, for me to transfer again? Or should I rethink that? Is it too risky for me to get pregnant again, given my placenta accreta? That's a very serious and very, very important question to ask. Very important. There's placenta previa, and then there's placenta accreta. We take placenta accreta very seriously because your risk of recurrence is high. So make sure you have all this information before you put your life at risk. Okay, Whitney, you're only 29. I'm feeling a little dramatic there. Okay, next question is from Katie. Katie is from Solano County in California, age 39. I'm 39 at the beginning of the IVF process, doing everything solo, currently on a waiting list. It's like you're on a waiting list for the club. It is the VIP club, and everyone is on it. Okay, my AMH is 3.2. I have PCOS. I'm currently trying to lose weight before proceeding with IVF. I'm 5'8", 250. Would you do an IVF cycle on someone in my weight range, or should I postpone until I drop a lot more weight? How far in the process would be safe based on my weight? I'm not on any medications other than vitamins, and I have no other comorbidities, diabetes or hypertension. Okay, Katie, here's the deal. You're 39. I'm not gonna, what is the word, body shame you. I'm gonna preserve eggs, preserve embryos right away. You're 39 years old. There's no reason to wait. However, this is the thing. You will possibly require more medications just because of your body size. It's going to be a little bit more expensive to stimulate your ovaries. It is possible that they may not, so sometimes they don't get as many eggs out because of visualization issues, because of body size. So I would talk to your doctor and say this. Number one, I have a high AMH. What are you going to do to keep me safe during my IVF cycle? Number two, I really hope you're not going to underdose my medications because you're worried about something about me because of my body size, because that would kind of suck. Number three, do you think I should talk to the anesthesiologist about any potential airway issues so we can troubleshoot that ahead of time? Number four, ask your doctor, has my PCOS been optimized? Meaning, is my testosterone low? Is my hemoglobin A1C normal? Is my cholesterol normal? So important to go into a pregnancy with all of those things normalized. Ideally, as normal as possible as you're going through your IVF cycle as well. So for me, 5'8", 250, that's a healthy enough BMI for me to move forward with an IVF cycle for you. I wouldn't feel like I would want to wait that much longer just because of your age. I don't want to lose an opportunity to get healthy eggs from you. I see you. I mean, I don't literally see you, but when I see you, Katie, I see a fertile young woman who deserves to be a mother, and your body size doesn't worry me. However, if you had diabetes, if you had hypertension, that's a different story. So weight is a very, very personal thing. Trying to get pregnant is a very, very personal thing. I unfortunately have seen situations where people are waiting because they're trying to lose weight, and then their egg quality changes as they're waiting. And I don't think that's fair to you. I think that it makes sense at 39 to move forward with IVF and go get those golden embryos frozen. Okay, next question is from Aza, Virginia, age 34. Hi, Dr. Amy, I had 3 failed FETs. None of it resulted even in 1 positive pregnancy test. I had PCOS and I don't ovulate on my own. First round of IVF, we had 5 PGTA tested normal embryos, all good grades, 2 5BB and 1 6BB. We transferred 3, but no luck of getting pregnant or even a positive beta. I'm pre-receptive for my ERA, which we did the timing on my third FET, but still no luck. They tested my NK cells. My doctor told me it was normal. My husband's results were all normal. Every FET cycle we had, my lining was perfect, greater than 10 millimeters. I'm lost on what is wrong, and I don't get any positive pregnancies at all. What other tests I can do, and what questions should I ask my doctor on our follow-up? Thank you so much. Okay, this is my point, you guys. Look, the time to do the implantation testing is before you transfer your very best embryos. If I were to make a guess, the only reason why your last transfer didn't work, you did your very best for that embryo. It just didn't have what it takes. It was lower quality than your other embryos. So now that you have the information about the right timing for your transfer because you were pre-receptive, I have a gut feeling that your next transfer is going to work. I hope I'm right. I really, really hope I'm right. So my suggestion would be to make more embryos. And then from here, especially if you want more than one baby, from here, consider doing the Receptiva DX test to test for, let's say, silent endometriosis, endometritis. And you can do that test even while you're asleep for the egg retrieval, or you can do it even a week after your egg retrieval. So you can take advantage of the IVF cycle that you're in to do more testing about how you're going to prepare for your transfer. But I always say it's always the most obvious things that are usually the issue. And for us, it could be that your PCOS hasn't been well managed. So make sure you've looked at all the things that go into having PCOS, like your testosterone and your glucose levels, and make sure that those are normalized before you transfer again. Number 2, consider making more embryos. And number 3, I would say go for it. And then obviously there's all the other stuff like making sure your cavity is good and the rest of your labs are normal, like your thyroid. And then look at the sperm one more time and make sure it also is sparkling. I feel like I haven't said sparkling sperm enough tonight, so I'm going to say it. Someone looked up sparklingsperm.com on GoDaddy and it was available. I should buy it. Okay, next question is from Sylvia, age 30, in Kansas. I'm 33 years old. My first transfer resulted in an ectopic pregnancy after transferring our only normal PGT embryo from our first cycle. My second transfer resulted in a blighted ovum. I'm scheduled to have a DNC next week. What testing should we do next? We have 4 4AA and 3 3AA embryos left. We did not do PGT testing for our second cycle. We started IVF due to male factor. Thank you for all you do. Okay, so here's the deal. We have an ectopic and we have a blighted ovum. An ectopic tells me we need to look at the fallopian tubes to make sure that you're not at risk for another ectopic. And we have to ask if there's a tubal issue, why? Where is that coming from? Is it endometriosis? And is endometriosis potentially what caused the blighted ovum? However, your blighted ovum, if you had the opportunity to test it, I would test it. And it sounds like you do. You're scheduled to have a DNC next week. Please test that pregnancy. That pregnancy is one of the most valuable diagnostic tests about your fertility and what's going on that you can do, and you can learn so much from it, okay? Because if the testing comes back abnormal, then you do this. If the testing comes back normal, then you do that, right? So if the testing from that pregnancy tissue comes back normal chromosomes, then you consider things like checking antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, checking for silent endometriosis, checking for a uterine septum, okay? Those are the things that you would check. If the genetic testing comes back abnormal, depending on the abnormality, if it's, let's say, a sign that you and your husband, one of you carries a structural rearrangement like a translocation, you'd want to do chromosome testing on both of you and then consider testing the remaining embryos. If it comes back abnormal for something like trisomy 18 and it's not necessarily genetic or inherited that you pass it on, then you might want to consider testing your remaining embryos. They're fabulous quality. Ask your IVF doctor to see, in the experience of your IVF lab, would it make sense, given all that we've been through, including this blighted ovum, for us to thaw, biopsy, and refreeze the embryos in anticipation of doing another transfer? And hopefully your next transfer will be successful. The other thing about male factor is, and I know it's controversial, but I don't think there's anything controversial about making sperm sparkle and learning more about sperm and the DNA fragmentation, but if there truly is a male factor, maybe go back and see what you can do to make the sperm even better. I know that sounds weird, but the reason why I say that is because of your young age. I think you said that you were 33. So at 33, you have so much more time in your life to even make more embryos, try naturally, but depending on what you learn from the sperm, it's possible if the sperm DNA fragmentation was really high at the time that you made the embryos, you might have a lower implantation rate and a higher risk of miscarriage. And that might be something that you want to know now before you transfer again. Okay, this is from Kim, age 30 in Florida. Hi, Dr. Amy, you're amazing and thank you for all you do. I cannot explain how helpful your show is. Me and my husband, both 30, diagnosed with male factor infertility. Semen analysis results show low count 0.7 million, motility 10%, normal form 0, viability 17. DNA fragmentation test was 24%. His urologist said he has varicose veins, but didn't recommend surgery, saying we would need IVF regardless. Do you agree? We completed our first round of IVF and resulted in 18 retrieved, 10 mature, 7 fertilized, 4 blasts on day 5, no PGT. We want at least 2 children. Should we do another round of IVF or go into a transfer? My levels are follicle count 14, AMH 5.8, FSH 7.4, Estradiol 38, LH 4. My carrier screen came back normal with one thing and my husband had none. Okay, Kim, here's the deal. I would make sure that you've done genetic testing on both of you, and it sounds like you did the carrier screen, but perhaps do the chromosome analysis on you and him, especially since you didn't do genetic testing on the embryos. That's usually my recommendation, so you don't get really upset that you didn't do a very simple test up front before you do a transfer. Number 2, I would, because you're young, age of 30, wouldn't it be fun to get pregnant naturally? I know. Coming to my office, way fun. Trying for a baby at home, I'm just kidding. When 2 people love each other, miracles can happen. And believe it or not, even though his sperm count is only 700,000, after a varicocele repair, it can shoot up. No pun intended. Literally. I've seen it happen. So I use your age to tell me if your husband should get a needle in the balls. I'm just kidding. There's no needle in the balls. He's asleep for it. But having his varicocele removed could potentially result in you not needing to go through IVF for your second baby. You've already made these embryos for baby number 1. So I would say, let's use them. Take advantage of them. They look and sound beautiful. So I would say, get prepared for a transfer and get an embryo home. However, for his sperm, for baby number 2, perhaps definitely get the varicocele repaired. That's what I would suggest for you. Honestly, that's my recommendation. Okay, this last question, before I get to your live chatted questions here tonight, from Melissa, age 35 in Canada. I'm 35 with low ovarian reserve. Me and my partner did 2 IUIs. I had a chemical pregnancy. We cannot afford more than 1 IVF cycle. I'm feeling very discouraged and disappointed. So I take that breath and I remember Dr. Carolyn Alexander's mantra, and it's a beautiful one. It's inhale courage and exhale fear. You got to practice that a little bit and then you start believing it, because that's what's really important for you to do. And then remember my mantra that I use for my patients, and I share it with them. You're going to be a mother one way or another. So it is really scary to take on IVF, especially when you've been labeled as things like low ovarian reserve. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to your doctor and say, how can I best prepare for IVF? What can I do to give myself the best chance? What protocol are you using and why are you using it? And then do this. Say, at the start of your cycle, do you think based on all my numbers that this is the best cycle that I should be moving forward with? Or should I wait and see if there's another, you can use my analogy, wave of eggs that are going to come in and be better? So that's my suggestion, is just take a little time to prepare for your IVF, show up to your IVF doctor's clinic and take a look at the ovaries, look at the follicle count, look at your AMH, look at your pyramid, and then talk to your doctor about when the best cycle should be for you to start. And then remember my sparkle method and my sparkle checklist. So every time you go in, you can see the size of the follicles and then make a really good decision about whether you should convert the cycle to IUI or do IVF. But what you are sharing right here is something that so many people out there are also dealing with. So I'm glad that I was able to share my perspective about your situation. And I really hope that your IVF cycle, the one and only, is going to be the only one that you need.